I'd like to invite the panelists first and request you to switch on your video as I introduce you. Our first panelist is Nilotpal Chaudhary, who is Vice President of Customer Success for BMC Software India. We then have Randhir Bindra, Senior Director of Professional Services, Dell Technologies, Gaurav Mittal, Product Management Leader at Intuit, and Shekhar Ganpati, Senior Director, Global Support Compute and Cloud Management for VMware. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. So we'll get right into it, right? Because I know I have a lot of questions that I've lined up for y'all. But I'd like to start with you, Nilotpal. So one, I think, is just talk us through for your organization specifically, how has the engagement and interaction between customers and product management teams been with engineering teams, right? We'll start with that and run through all the panelists and take it from there.
Hey, thanks, Namita, for inviting, and good morning, everyone. Unfortunately, the last 1.5 years has been really terrible for everyone, right? Nobody anticipated the scale of pandemic, what we saw, and the entire world, actually, right? But the first few months were tough for everyone. And we as a company first focused on our employees because we believe that focusing on our employee, making them happy and their family members safe was more important than just diving into the business, right? After taking care of the employees in the first few months, I think a lot of things fell in place. So we adopted a new working model, which is working completely remote. I represent the customer success, which is primarily all about traveling and customers all throughout my life. And we completely halted, right? Which was traveling like a couple of weeks in a month to like virtually zero, right? Being at home. But then if you look at for global in-house centers like us, it actually opened a lot of opportunity in terms of collaborating with our customers, product management teams who are based out of different parts of the world. Earlier, a lot of customers, and including our counterparts based out of different countries, not very open to work remotely on the ideations or the innovations. It was always about, okay, we have to meet in person. It had its own advantage, but I think this pandemic has literally forced everyone to work remote. Doesn't matter whether you're in the same country or anywhere in the world. And this has a huge opportunity which has opened for all the remote working centers like us. And it has really, really made us more viable alternative for the rest of the world. And this global in-house centers, we'll talk about more in details as we progress, but it has opened a host of opportunities the way we are working with our customers now. I see the customers are more receptive in terms of how they work. And our employees are also become more engaged with them because they see that value of working from like home, of course, and we have our own traffic and other problems in India. But barring all those things aside, I think it has a huge opportunity for all of us.
Got it, Nilotpal. So I will come to how you, went from coming to a complete halt to making it an opportunity for the organization. And I know we will deep dive as we move into the questions. But Shekhar, I'd like to sort of pull you in, right? What has the experience been like for your engineering teams and specific challenges that you've encountered? Or like Nilotpal, did you view it as an opportunity to really try something new?
Yeah. Thanks, Namita, and very good morning to everyone. I'm so happy to see some of my friends here in this as participants. I've been sitting as a participant in other forums, so thank you for joining and taking time to be part of this meeting. As Nilotpal said correctly, right? March 2020 is when we started realigning, thinking of working the new ways and how to align to the new norms. And I want to start by first and foremost acknowledging the industry, right? I'm very proud that the industry came together, started sharing a lot of best practices, started working around how, and as he said, first thing was to take care of our employees. We had a lot of unknowns, the ability to work 24/7 remotely, right? It was all not tested. We had done some tabletop testing for our BCP operations, but it was at a very small scale, right? And we had to do this at a very large scale. The industry, the bodies came together, got all the approvals in a timely manner, which helped us stand up in front of the world and say that, you know what, we are capable of running our operations. And like any true organization, across the globe, people came up and said, what help do you need? Please put up your hand and let us know if we can help you. And I can very proudly say that all the teams in India we have been able to carry out our functions and our operations with practically zero or no minimal impact, right? So that's something very proud. And I think that's some inbuilt in our culture where, we want to prove that, or we always wanting to fight, right? Or we want to prove that we can do it. So that's something very proud about. But I want to, in today's call, focus on the customer, right? I'm from the tech support organization, and we work very closely with engineering and product management teams, and we have a very large presence in India. I'll talk a little bit about what we do as a strategy. But from a customer perspective, this situation was very unprecedented. And I want to talk about a few examples of where we had very large hospitals, and we had large organizations who were in the final stages of testing their vaccines, right? And their dependence on having their infrastructure up and running, their dependence on their platform to be up and running was very critical for the success of, one, getting all the taking care of the patients so that no one gets impacted, and second, also release of the vaccines, something like that. So what we found during these hard times is that one is we decided we'll take a customer first approach, and we had situations where typically we would have told when customers came to us, when it was bordering around how do I use and how do I set up their environments, we went and took the approach of saying we'll first help the customer, then figure out whether we need to involve consultants or PSOs or something like that. So the customer first approach really turned the tables. And so much so that today the customers have come back and said, we really trust in the organization. And I'm sure many of us would be doing the same thing. The trust we built was phenomenal. So this was an opportunity where we built such a strong engagement, where with our customers now they really trust us for life, and it gave us an opportunity to also do things like we would never have done for like in the past. For example, our end of life products, we extended it by a year. We know customers are going through tough times. And so rather than just force them to do their upgrades, we know which is going to be a challenge. We extended the end of life for all our products by at least a year. Second, we had a number of customers who were not able to renew, okay, because of various challenges. And we said, it's okay. We will continue to service you. We'll continue to support you in spite of, not having the contracts in place. Those are the type of few examples of the customer first approach we took. And this engagement model and the interactions we have had with customers have really resulted in some very strong bonding, which I'm sure will be very positive in the future.
That's great, Shekhar, and so actionable, right? Thank you so much. But just a quick sort of input before I move to Gaurav and Randhir is this BCP and the tabletop testing that you did, right? Do you think it is necessary now to start looking at customer interactions and almost product development being a part of BCP protocols? I think by its very definition, it's only the day-to-day operational constraints that are tested. Is it important to also look at this as an aspect of BCP testing for organizations going forward?
I would say yes, and I'll tell you the reason why. Typically, what we have realized is people have connectivity, they're able to operate. But is their productivity as high as they would be in if they're working out of office? And I'll take a very simple example of, let's say, for example, network speed. So there are solutions available in the market today where you can have a throughput, even though the network connectivity is not very high, you have the ability to increase the throughput, which will then enable employees to be as productive. And there was a survey we did in our organization, and we found that the internal IT, when they did the survey, they found that employees, and we know how many employees are also there, because of low connectivity and low speeds, the disconnections, inability, not having the ability to upload large files or process them at the right speed, did have an impact of around 50% of their productivity. So the need to do the right testing and the right solution, I think is an ongoing thing, and we should keep an eye, because that's going to help our organizations in the long run. At a small incremental cost, I think the benefit is going to be very huge.
Poll results.
Yeah.
Some interesting poll results. Thank you so much, Shekhar. Interesting. I will come back to some of these points later. But, Randir, I'd like to bring you in at this stage, right? From the professional services, and you really wear that hat, but what has been your experience of the pandemic? Has it raised more complications, or has it actually raised more opportunities than anything?
Okay. Hi, everybody. Good morning. I think great opening from Nilot and Shekhar. I think they've really given a great context to where we are today, right? Just a quick context about our organization here. So professional services, I think everybody knows, understands, we provide the deployment, configuration, migration services for the infrastructure portfolio of products that Dell Technology has, right? Which basically means we are the last mile connectivity for our customers for the products that they have bought, from our organization. Now, when the first wave hit, right? I think nobody realized that the impact of this and what's going to happen. I think customers were deferring their decisions for buying. But as the first wave started receding, we saw that customers were back into the buying decision mode, but we were still facing the challenge of who's actually going to go and deploy this, right? Because traditionally, deployment business is a very high touch, in-person, on-site kind of a model. I mean, that's the traditional domain of a deployment business or a professional services business. Some of the major markets like the US or the Europe were kind of going through a very high peak of COVID, where neither the customers nor the vendors were able to kind of go in person and do this work. So that actually presented an opportunity, a great opportunity for our remote teams here, based across the globe, for providing these deployment or configuration migration services, right? While we've always been doing this in a remote setup, right? But I think this kind of accelerated the whole. I mean, it kind of changed the paradigm of it tested, or it kind of broke the myths about no, this cannot be done remotely, or this has to be an onshore on-site model. The customers were receptive. Our sales organization counterparts were receptive. It was just for us to then prove that we could do it effectively, right? To Shekhar's point, yes, I mean, the only testing that we had to do was we had to get out of the office and sit at home and just be connected, right? Apart from that, we were doing exactly what we were doing all this while. So as soon as that connectivity was established, I think our business never saw a downturn from that point of time, except for the first few months of that wave. Apart from that, I think customers started asking more about remote services. We kind of launched services during this period, which were remote only, right? Which were earlier very in-person, high-touch services, which then became versions of remote only services. And I think our customers are just loving it. So I think this has actually turned out to be a boon for the organization in terms of providing more remote connectivity and more remote services for our customers.
Got it.
And also going forward, I strongly believe that's how things will kind of evolve in the future.
Yeah, as they should, I think. I mean, it's almost like the pandemic forced us to go into this testing mode to see if this would be viable. And I think it kind of pushed the entire industry forward in that sense. But Gaurav, now to bring you in, right? And I really invite you to play devil's advocate, because all of the other leaders have viewed this as an opportunity, and they've painted a very rosy picture. You're from the product management side. Tell me, has your experience been the same of interacting with engineering teams? Are there areas where you believe it has been more challenging versus areas like productivity, like efficiency, which have actually been higher over the last 1.5 years? So what do you think, Gaurav?
Sure. So good morning, everyone, on my behalf as well. I hope you all are doing well and stay safe during these difficult times, where some of us are still seeing the long tail of wave 2. And at the same time, we're already hearing about wave 3 with Delta plus variant, in some states. So coming to today's topic, see, one good thing, and where I hope everyone in audience will agree, is that we all aspire to be customer obsessed. And one interesting quote which comes to my mind from Jeff Bezos is that, and I quote over here, is, "One thing I love about customers is that they are divinely discontent. Their expectations are never static and they always go up. So people have a voracious appetite for a better way, and you cannot rest on your laurels in this world, and customers won't have it." So I can almost feel it from this quote, the customer obsessed culture which Jeff has built at Amazon. Right? Now, if we all agree and aspire for customer obsession, how do we build in while we are working remotely? Right? So without doubt, during the pandemic, the interaction with customers have been impacted. And since the face-to-face meetings opportunities are minimal right now. Right? However, I would also say that, this has also provided an opportunity to think differently and innovate new ways to get customer insights. So if you take a step back and think from a big picture, then we will realize that product strategy allows us to focus on a handful of business problems, which have the biggest impact on the customer problems, achieving business goals, and forward march towards the product vision. Now, while we do multitude of things in the organization to keep everyone happy, but it is these handful of business problems, if we get them right, then we can have, keep our customers happy and also meet or even beat our business goals. So the challenge comes is that, how do we identify these business problems and generate, further insights which can facilitate, this product decision making. And this has also been, the problem in many of the, firms and in some industries. So in product teams, and Intuit totally believes in co-location between product management and product engineering. We have tried to do as much as possible because that's really the way to go. So in product teams, which I have built, in past several years, we have gathered 4 different sources, or types of insights. So first is basically qualitative insights, quantitative insights, technology insights, and industry insights. So let's take them one by one. Right? So starting with the qualitative insights. So this is where, we do user research, and this has the biggest impact which we have seen during the pandemic. So this also includes, user interviews, doing the customer surveys, forms, customer shadowing, checking discussion and feedback forums, social media posts, churn survey, talking to sales for, B2B firms and the customer success teams, etc. Now, as you can see, this is not only about face-to-face interactions, but there are many things, which you can do, remotely also. Right? And this is great. However, relying 100% on the qualitative insights have its own share of problems. And why? See, obviously, we are seeing that during pandemic, it is difficult to meet customers. It also includes problems like, needing a lot of resources and time when we do the customer interviews and all that. So many times, we commission, these user research, and user studies at the start of something new, right? Or at the time of redesigning something. Or there is maybe some firms, some of the firms I have seen, there is a time angle attached to it that, hey, every 6 months, for example, we will try to do, this customer and user studies and all that. So what happens is that, we lack, what is the continuous daily cycle like we can do for the quantitative methodologies, right? So you need to know every day instead of waiting for 6 months, for the new results to come in. So what comes next, right? So quantitative insights. So this is where we build the data dashboards, and then we democratize them. That is very important. And that is where, we say that, hey, while working remotely, how does it help, right? Because I mean over here that everyone in the team has access to these dashboards, which shows metrics, which the firm wants to track or the team wants to track, for example, customer acquisition, customer engagement, customer retention. And it has also basically, what we have done specifically is that, we have put various filters also, in terms of drop downs, which allows everyone in the team to do further analysis. right? The big level dashboards, what we call as an overview tabs, are for the leadership management to see, come and have a glance in 30 seconds or a minute that what exactly is going on. But the engineering teams, but the customer support team, they need to do a deeper analysis. And that's what, we have a separate tabs, as a part of these data dashboards, which allows you to do more, deep down analysis. If you want to, do analysis with respect to specific customer segment or for a cohort or a new feature, old, new customer, etc., right? Now, this is great. Right? However, right, but this is only telling us what is happening in the product. But this is not telling us why it is happening, and which is so important, right, to do the further, customer development and product development. So what do we do? And this is what, we have changed and invested a lot during the pandemic in last, maybe 15 months or so. We started this journey before the pandemic, but we have really accelerated that. So what do we do right now, right? So we realized that, right, that, and we started to leverage product to get these insights on an everyday basis, from the customers. Now, this is what we call as a closed feedback loop. I'll give you some examples, right? We ask NPS survey, once every 90 days to our customers, right, where we ask them to give the rating 1 to 10. And below that, there is an open text field to provide a reason, why they give this rating. Now, this feedback, which the customers are giving, is integrated in a way that an email gets sent to the email alias, right? So, and anyone can subscribe from the team, to that email alias, and now actually we have improvised it further that it has, integrated with the Slack channels. So what happens is everyone in the team, right, can subscribe to the Slack channel or to the email alias and get the customer insights, while they are working remotely. So it's not, let's say, restricted to any particular team or any particular, let's say, set of people, but everyone in the team can, start to get these insights. Now, same way, when the user is, for example, canceling the subscription, now we say that you have to give a reason. When there is for example, in another thing is in file menu option in the product, where there is a place where users can go and provide feedback. We have also built in something called, feature request tracker. So earlier, maybe 5 years before, we used to send the surveys to the customers and all that. But, that is an old way to do that. Instead, now, we have built into the product and, we bring more contextualized information and more structured way to get this information from the customer. Same thing is contact us question, right? Many of the product have this, where the users can contact the customer support from within the product itself, right? So whatever they are asking, right, it is definitely going to the regular channels, so the customer support team and the customer success team can have a look at that. But at the same time, right, it also gets integrated with that Slack channel or email alias, where we get to see, hey, what are the typical things which customers are asking, right? So from a product point of view, we get these insights and we start to kind of work on them, immediately, even before, it gets to the customer success, they look into it and then they get back to us.
Got it.
Obviously, depending upon the scale of the product, it can be done differently and all that, right? Yeah. So I'll just take, so what I would say is that, so these qualitative, quantitative, and the closed feedback loop give us more comprehensive customer insights. And this allows us to both learn and engage, with the customers in real time. Now, we also have built on top of this in terms of technology insights, and industry insights. I will not spend too much time, on these two aspects here today, but broadly speaking, right, the technology foundation keeps changing. The pace is so great. What is possible today was not possible 12 months back, right? For example, the advancements we have seen in deep tech, right, artificial intelligence, big data, Internet of Things, blockchain, robotics. The pace is tremendous, in these kind of technologies. So we have technology experts and architects, in the group, and wherever they see something interesting or an existing technology utilized in a different way, they again post it on these Slack channels, and these email aliases, and then it becomes accessible to everyone. So that's how we are, collectively raising the bar, and the insights, which everyone is getting. So in summary, I would say that, so we aim to get a multifaceted view of the customer and source insights qualitatively, quantitatively with a closed feedback loop, and along with the technology developments which are happening around us from the industry players, as you would have noticed, many of these things are possible while working remotely. So that is what, from a product point of view, I would say.
This is great, right? I mean, I think the key takeaway here is that the democratization and access of customer data is very fundamental. And a lot of this effort has been expedited as a result of the pandemic, which is great. So, but you're from the product management team, Gaurav. So does this data directly also move to the engineering teams and affect their or influence their day-to-day development? Are there also sort of mechanisms and channels for that?
Absolutely. So, this Slack channel, anyone in the whole can subscribe to.
Okay.
Right. Okay. And we see that is the role of product management. We don't want to, use the hands of the engineers. We want to use their hands and minds. So if we are able to bring the customer, in front of the engineers, we can get much more insights. And that is what probably we'll cover later in the discussion today about, how we can get more innovation and ideation going on across the team rather than restricting it to only a handful of people.
No, absolutely. I think I agree 100%. And we will come back to this. But one of the things that I did want to talk about is the hypothesis that a lot of leaders come to us with, right? Is that while productivity has been great, efficiency has been great, a lot of cost saved on travel time, etc. One of the things we are seeing and hypothesizing is that there has been a drop in the innovation momentum and innovation throughput, right? And I'm just going to put this out there, is that a lot of engineering leaders believe that interactions have become very transactional and not really idea led. There's the whole concept of Zoom fatigue and the inability to ideate as effectively remotely as you would in person, right? So Randhir, I want to bring you in and sort of run this by you. Is this a problem that you have seen with respect to ideation and innovation within your teams, or how has it functioned? You're on mute, Randhir.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Let me actually start with a confession, right? I mean, traditionally in the services organizations, innovation is not a very high agenda item, right? Because it's generally considered to be a product or a product engineering or a product management kind of a thing, right? Because you have to go in and deliver the services day in, day out, right? So, but what this forced us, and I agree, right? I mean, it's generally associated with free form, unstructured brainstorming, and remote setup does kind of, hinders that that approach that traditionally we've been following for brainstorming or for innovation and ideation. Now, what we did is we realized a couple of things as we got into this situation, right? So we said, okay, you know what? As more and more customers are asking for remote services, we obviously have to, find out innovative ways of delivering these services faster, better, without getting them the feel of, hey, there's nobody on site or in person available, right? So how do we enable those kind of things? So we did a couple of things, right? So what we did is we, at a business level, we initiated an innovation challenge contest kind of thing within the organization, where a 4,000, 5,000 people organization started pooling in ideas about how can we improve services, how can we deliver services quicker and faster, right? Without any connectivity issues or without any collaboration challenges. And then the second thing is obviously, when you start getting these dozens of of ideas, you need to channelize them, funnel them, evaluate each of them, and then when you actually do take that through the process. I just to give an example, right? In the last 12 months, we got a dozen plus great ideas that how we can improve our services or how we can automate some of the high touch things that we do from a customer service standpoint. We automated a lot of those things. In fact, for the first time from a remote services standpoint, we have now filed 2 patents, right? Which we've never done that in the past, right? And that's the kind of, and there's now actually a tool which has come out, which is now being deployed at a corporate level for deploying these products for our customers. So I think the outcome is great. I think the only thing that we have to be mindful is, while there's absence of free form and free ideation, you still need to drive this within the organization and make it a little more structured, right? Put an agenda for a brainstorming session. Don't let it be just a wild goose chase. Go with a certain problem, solve a problem that needs to be resolved, right? And bring in a diversity of people that can provide you other ideas, right? Because if you bring in the same set of folks that been dealing with that problem statement for a while, they are mentally blocked, right? So, I mean, if you have to solve a delivery problem, bring in a finance guy, bring in an operations guy, right? Bring in a sales guy, and bring in a delivery guy, because then you know what the problem is, and then but they will also give you the different people will give you perspective from their standpoint, right? I think that's turning out to be helpful in my mind, and I think we'll continue to follow that model here, and we'll see how we make this more institutionalized rather than just like a pandemic only situation.
Got it. So I will come back to that, because I think one of my follow-up questions, and it's a later question as well, is how do you plan to sustain this in the long term, right? And what are you going to sort of deploy in order for that to happen? But Shekhar, to pull you in, in your experience, how has it been, right? Are engineering teams less engaged, less inclined to solve problems, and are they just more obsessed with the day-to-day, making sure businesses are sort of up and running? Or have you also seen higher innovation throughput, very simply because now they're more productive, have more time on their hands? Which side of the fence are you seeing?
So I will give both the realistic thing what we are seeing. Okay.
Sure.
One is like what Randhir said, as an organization on very similar lines. We have a event which we do locally, and there is a global event also which happens 2 times a year. So there's a lot of opportunities for people to come across and precisely, right, rather than have the same set of folks, we try to intermingle the different functions, right? And when we're talking about functions, we're talking about folks from IT, folks from, of course, support, and who's customer facing, people from the pricing and procurement. So, interestingly, they have come out some very creative, and the outcomes have been very different from what it was in the past. So we continue to do the type of what we call as we call them as a borathons or radios or something. These are all different events which we do, and that continues to sparkle the innovation. But I'll give you on the other side, what is the flip side of all this remote working and the lack of face-to-face connect, right? There is this thing, and number one I would say is, and I'm sure everyone will agree, is on the culture. Right. What we have done is we have hired hundreds of thousands of people in the last 1 year, right, within our organization. These people who have joined us, some of them are from colleges, some of them are tenured people, some of them are also leaders, managers. They have not met the team. They have not had face-to-face interactions, right? And so, of course, they come with a particular mindset. They come with a background and a culture. And it's very important that, typically, if had you been in an office environment, you have a lot of social interaction, social connect. You understand the culture, you understand the fabric of the whole organization. And that, in my mind, is an element which we are grappling with. And I'm going to talk about what are we doing to mitigate some of these as well. But I like this quote. One of our leaders I think you must be aware, Ram Kumar, he keeps saying, the whole organization is like a rug, and all the people are like threads. And the organization, the rug is going to be well laid out if all the threads are intertwined and they really mix together very well, right? They form in the right way in shape. And that's when you're going to get a well-formed rug. And that's how we have to look at ourselves from an organization perspective. How can we all come together, interact, and create that vibe so that we don't lose the good things, at the same time enable whatever we are focusing on. Like, as I said, the culture is one area, right? That's number one thing. So how are we mitigating it? If I have to spend few minutes around that, it's not new to everyone, but how it's implemented, right? We have what we call as a chief of strategy for all of our center. For our entire center, we have one leader, right? And he is there in this call today, Jane. So I want to call him out. So he brings everybody together. He brings all the functions. So we have the R&D leader, we have the IT leader, the HR and operations leader, and of course the support and services, right? All of us come together, we interact, we have a laid out plan for the entire site. Okay, and we have identified what the focus areas and what we should drive as part of our innovation, and that has given us some good results and outcomes. Some of these things are the ways we are able to mitigate the challenges of when you're what can we do to continue to innovate and drive the innovation within the organization. I can elaborate a little bit about what are strategies, but maybe at an appropriate time I'll bring that out.
Yeah, so we will come back. I can see that there are questions from the audience in terms of the one differential that you've sort of institutionalized. I think Jayan himself has asked that, and we will come back to that. It was in my list of questions. But I do want to move on to Nilotpal in this question, right? Because one thing that I think both Randhir and Shekhar and actually Gaurav pointed out is that the collaboration between functions seems to have become a little bit easier because that barrier of co-location was almost removed, the mental barrier that you have to be together in order to innovate. So it seems like cross-functional collaboration has been a little bit easier. It's also in line with what we're hearing from the industry. But do you agree that sustaining innovation has been easier in this context, or would you prefer an in-person interaction whenever that happens?
Well, I think I'll answer first. I mean, the way we moved, actually, the in-person interaction was always better, right? So when you meet a person, meet for a dinner or a coffee, you build that relationship which is beyond the work, okay? And that is where something which you build for a very long time. But the situation forced us to behave differently, and especially from an Indian context, which we are not used to work from home, right? Pretty much everybody was used to coming to office and co-located, so which was a big advantage, which is not anymore. But after a couple of months, everybody has agreed to this new normal, right? So what we look at is a disruptive innovation, and other one is the incremental innovation. So incremental innovation is all about the small process changes, improvements, what we do. I mean, Randhir was talking about the services side, how some of those things need to be better. How do you work with the deployment? How do you bring in repetitive deployments? How do you do it better? Different ways, right? Disruptive innovation is all about working with our customers. So I'll give you a couple of examples how we are in our organization, we are working on it. From a customer side, where we are like inviting our customers. So we have a series of webinars where we actually talk to our customers. So they come and talk to us how they are using our software, how they are using the software, and also they talk about how the competitors of ours, they have better things which we don't have, and they give us some food for thought, and which is open to our entire India employees, as well as some people who can join from outside of the world, which is like 2,000 plus employees. When they join and hear the customers directly, that how they use the software in their environment and talk about some of the use case, it propels the thought in our engineers' mind, as well as services or support, any of the groups, including our internal customer-facing groups, be it a finance guy or anybody. It is all about driving customer centricity. This is what we have started a new initiative in this pandemic that get our real customers to come and talk about how they use the software, challenge us that, hey, some of those things should be better. We don't like about this thing. And this is something which is really helping. And this is a series of webinars we run. Second thing, we invite some of our strategic and selective customers to come and co-innovate with us. So co-innovation is all about, we have a lab set up for them, which is all remote. And they can work on like specific use case, what they think is going to drive their business in next 3 to 5 years based on the roadmap, and how our software can help, be it artificial intelligence, all these new softwares which we are putting together, talking about the Autonomous Digital Enterprise 2025. And that's really helping to connect our engineers, product managers, services team, and the customers together, and which is again in a virtual setup. And we use MS Teams virtual room feature, which is really good, actually. I mean, some of you can think of using it. It allows you to create some virtual rooms, breakout sessions. You don't have to do everything in person. You can set up those rooms, assign those participants. They can discuss and debate asynchronously the ideas and all those thoughts. And you can prioritize those things and bring it to one session, which can be more meaningful, and prioritize those ideas to talk about and take some right decisions. Because having multiple meetings doesn't help. You can't have meetings after meetings, like some of us talked about the meeting fatigue. And that's really is killing. So you don't have to have meetings. Just let people work on their own I mean, behave like if I'm, at my, like a garden or somewhere, I got a great idea. I can log into that chat room and just say, hey, this is something I'm thinking. What do you guys think? And this is where the discussions will keep on happening, and you can have a final discussion a couple of weeks down the line. Then we have something called an innovation lab, which is primarily for our internal employees, and where we run multiple ideas like hackathons and few things which on a regular basis. And those are predominantly to look at using our software or bringing in completely different perspective to that, and which is not like a annual event or a semi-annual or a quarterly event. You can submit your ideas anytime. So this is how it is, right? And there is always a panel of people from different groups who will look at the ideas. And there's a format and template which you got to talk about how it helps our customer, how it helps the business, what challenges it solves, or what kind of incremental value it brings to the organization. So once you fill that template, and just doesn't take more than 10 minutes just to submit your idea. Once you do that, then the panelists will quickly evaluate your ideas and come back and say if it is a good idea or a bad idea, or maybe the ideas can be combined. So what we have also seen, the multiple people have bits and pieces of ideas. Okay, so we have combined different people from different groups with a similar kind of idea to make it a big idea, and got all of them together to come back and present as a thought to the panel that, hey, this is what we are thinking. So if the idea makes sense, what we do, we go ahead with them in terms of investment, give them the time to build a proof of concept. Once they build a proof of concept and we see that it is viable along with the roadmap and it makes sense, so we take that as part of our product roadmap. And if people happen to be the engineering guys, great, they will continue to do that. But if they are from a different group, they can collaborate from outside and continue to see how things work. But some of this, I mean, we can talk at length. There are multiple other things we guys do, but for the benefit of time, I think some of those things which really helps. And most important thing I will tell, before we all talk about these ideas and all those things, employee motivation, I think there was a question, is extremely critical, okay? Employees are the key to success. If they are not happy, they are not excited, none of these things will work. Honestly, let me tell you, I mean, none of these things will work. I mean, if we are not excited to do something, if we are not excited to help our customer think about how they use the software, how we can get better, it's not going to work. So take care of the employees, make them feel secured, empowered in this remote working environment. A lot of people were worried in the beginning that my productivity is dropping. Honestly, it's all about empowering the customers, empowering the employees and making sure that they know the value, what they're driving for the company and the organization, and how they're playing a big role in the success of the entire thing. They will take care of the rest of the things. Do a lot of things for the employees and their families. I think the rest of the things will fall in place.
Absolutely. I think make sure employees know that you're invested in them, and I think the rest sort of becomes a self-propelling machine. So I completely agree with that. I think one of the things is lots of good practices here, right? Lots of insights around the kinds of practices, the kinds of tools, the structures that you all adapted in order to make sure that innovation sort of sustained at pre-pandemic levels almost. But one sort of, and I really want this to be the takeaway question, because I know y'all have answered a lot of my other questions in part, if not in full. One of the things that I wanted to run with all of you, and y'all can take some time to answer this, is what is the best practice that you anticipate is going to get institutionalized and is likely to stick, right? So I know Randhi talked about automation, Nilotpal, you talked about these webinars, and we've heard of these insights, but do you anticipate in the post-pandemic world, any of these practices are going to stick, right? Gaurav, and I'll start with you. Gaurav, is the whole democratization of data, access to data is something that the pandemic sort of expedited. Any formats, any other initiatives, or is this going to stick for the long term for Intuit?
No, I think whatever we have achieved, this will continue, because this has clearly taken us further ahead, from an innovation and ideation mindset. And I would also say that, that having innovation is must for any organization. And, I would like to quote with the data point, right? So 87% of Fortune 500 companies either got acquired, merged, or died in last 50 years. And they were not small organizations. They were Fortune 500 organizations. And 87% of them, are no more there in the form they used to be. But why? Right? Because they never achieved the right product market fit before scaling up, or even if they did achieve product market fit, they could not keep the pace with respect to the changing customer needs. Right? So I'll give a couple of examples. Personally, like Nokia. So Nokia, they had a great product market fit, and they were selling millions of devices per month. A customer loved Nokia as a brand. I remember personally in 2005, 2006, user research telling us that 8 out of 10 people in India having a phone carried a Nokia with them, right? But as the customer needs evolved, and customer wanted more exquisite touch and browsing experience, Nokia found themselves in a soft ground with respect to a product market fit. The other example I would give is Orkut. Right, they had millions of users in India. So when Facebook came with their superior product market fit, and utilizing the power of network effect, they took all away. They took away all the Orkut users. So hence it is very important to constantly disrupt yourself. Otherwise, someone else will disrupt you. Right. So how can we move forward from here, right, to make sure that whatever we have institutionalized in last many years, or specifically during pandemic, we can carry it forward. So, for example, at Intuit, right, one of the core competency is what we call as a customer-driven innovation, or CDI. Right? So CDI is where we focus our energy on important unresolved customer problems, and then figure out the best way that we solve that problem well. Right? In doing so, we build a source of durable competitive advantage, so that the Intuit products are built to last, and the competition could never do what we are able to do. Right? So you might also say that CDI is what we are looking for. And here, customer insights, right, both the qualitative, the quantitative, in a close feedback loop, what we just spoke about, the technology insights and the industry insights play a key role. Now, but then what is the next, right? Once we have identified this, then the second process, which comes is what we call as a D4D, or, design for delight, right? This is essentially, says that first go broad and then go narrow, right? So take an example, right? So if you want to do a Google search, what do you want? You want first as broad as results as possible, right? Not specifically from one particular country or one particular, let's say area, but you want the results to go as broad as possible. And then basically quickly narrow it down, or more contextualize to what you are looking for. So it's something similar, what we kind of adopt, right? So how can we focus, and this principle of D4D allows the team to stay focused on 2 to 3 large problems. Right? This also allows to be bold and go deeper into these problems. Try not to solve like 20 problems at the same time, right? A common mistake which the organizations do, right? So, and then we follow what we call as a lean entrepreneurship mindset, where you are in a constant experimentation mode, right? So, in a way, we acknowledge that the team cannot know all the things upfront, but by having a build, measure, and learn culture, it helps the team to get there. Right? We don't know everything upfront, but we can get over there, over a period of time by experiments. And we have seen that it will also give beautiful results and improve the decision-making speed, which is also a very common problem in the organizations, because the decisions are very slow and the team feel frustrated, they are not able to move forward. But these two processes gets you there. And finally, collaboration. I think what is a key Intuit value is what we call a stronger together. And how do we build high trust relationships? This democratizing of data is one such thing where everyone is on the same page. It's not information is not withheld, with a couple of people or few people. As our former CEO, Brad Smith, says that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. Right? So, and here I would say that basically, we always put or try to put ourselves in the beginner's mind. Right? So, learn from any source, including what others have done in the industry, and this is where industry insights come into play. A competitor, what they are doing, how they are using, different things which are, getting, bringing new in the market, the technology insights and all that, right? And how can how can we be the same and make relevant in your context while others are doing the same, but how can we learn from them and make it relevant for your context? And always listen to the team, right? Because they know the product so much better, right? And that's how you can utilize the teams over there. And lastly, I would say over here is basically kind of, utilize technology to solve customer problems. It's very key over here. I'm not talking about only the digital technologies, right? But I'm also talking about the physical products, how can they innovate, and kind of bring the new technologies over there, right? So, and what we key believe over here is that think about platformization and personalization at scale, right? And when in the solution discovery phase, and then break it down into smaller chunks. So this is what, right, we have been working in the past. We probably have accelerated this more in the, during this pandemic time. And we are 100% sure that we will take it forward, beyond this, because this is how the business will run, going forward. We'll never get back to the same, what it was pre-pandemic, right? So I think it's a new normal from that perspective.
Got it. Thank you so much, Gaurav. Randhir, there's, a question from the audience in terms of, and I think it paraphrases what I've asked, is how does it fundamentally change the way your teams are going to operate? Are there any practices? I know you've achieved a lot, but how do you plan to sustain a lot of what you've institutionalized during the pandemic?
I think I'll just take that one thing, which is, I think Nilootpal also touched upon, and the question is also talking about, impact on our teams, right? I think that's paramount in my mind. See, the most common thing that or the most important thing we are missing out from a co-location or from an office setup is when any of us get into a challenge or a problem, right? We just, stand up in our cubicles, we raise our hands, and then there are 5 people also kind of stand up and start giving you a solution or a suggestion, right? I think that's the most important thing that we are missing in a remote setup today. The way we thought it could solve the problem, and it did to a large extent, was we leveraged some of the most common available technologies. So, we created a collaboration platform internally, which is an amalgamation of MS Teams, SharePoint, our knowledge management system powered by artificial intelligence. So I have a question, I'll put it into the Teams, right? Or my chatbot, I could put my question into a chatbot. If it doesn't have the information in the knowledge management database, it will fan it out to all the people who has worked on that kind of a problem in the past. And I'm likely to get a solution or an answer. The advantage is, instead of the 5 cubicles who were earlier going to give me the solution, now it's probably 500 people who can give me a potential solution, because now this spans across the world, right? This is something that we never had. We built it over, I think, 9-10 months ago, and this is working wonders. We're going to continue with this, not just continue with this. We've already institutionalized this. We are now fanning it across a wider set of organization by including engineering, product management, sales, pre-sales, so that everybody can collaborate on the same set of questions or problems that we are facing on a day-to-day basis, right? So that's one. The other thing is, especially from a remote perspective, right, while we interact with our customers, I think, honestly, I thought we never did a good job in terms of promoting ourselves, right? In terms of promoting our remote teams. And I think that's one great lesson that we've learned during this time is, talk about what you've done, talk about your success stories, talk about the problems that you've solved, both with your customers, potential customers, as well as your internal stakeholders like sales or delivery leaders, because I think it's a question of changing the mindsets, right? While the situation or the event has forced it to sustain this beyond pandemic, I think that effort has to be put in place on a sustainable, ongoing basis. And I think then, to your point, this will become embedded, this will become DNA, rather than just remaining a black swan event like a pandemic.
Absolutely. And really an opportunity to learn rather than to feel down and out about, right? Thank you so much, Randhir. I think that was incredibly insightful. Nilootpal, on to you, and then I'll let Shekhar sort of sign off with his final thoughts. But how has this fundamentally changed the way you're going to operate in the coming years, right? And what are some of the learnings and best practices you will institutionalize for the long term?
Yeah. Look, I mean, the travel budgets are gone. So this is the way I look at the company has found a better way of saving as a bottom line, which is a good thing. It yields in a better margin and performance of the company. So which all the CFOs have figured out pretty quickly. So those money is going not going to come back. Okay. So including our sales, everybody who used to be taking a plane overnight to just be at a customer location, all those luxuries are gone. Okay. But the good thing which has happened, and Randeep touched upon that, I think for GIC, I'll talk specifically about our global in-house centers. It has created a level playing field for everyone. So earlier, it was always like an advantage for people who can go to the customer site or meet them in person. So you always had the time zone advantage, you had the in-person meeting advantage, all those good things which used to happen, right? Now everybody is equal. So it doesn't matter whether you are based out of US or Europe or India or wherever you are. So you are exactly on the same MS Teams or whatever platform you use. So which has created an equal opportunity for everyone. I think this is an opportunity which all of us need to really embrace and demonstrate. That's one way of looking at. This is where I think the entire cultural change is happening and is part of the DNA of every employee who are in a remote setup. Even though they used to travel, but still most part of the folks who are like part of the GICs, they never used to have an interaction with the customer. I mean, to be honest, right? Maybe 10% of the people used to get an opportunity. Some of the examples which I gave a few minutes before, now they have access to the customer. Everybody has the access to the customer. Now we have to raise our employees and make them think how they can make the most of this time when the customers are coming and talking to us. When they're talking about the co-innovation, when they're talking about the use case, they're talking about a few other things. How do we as a global in-house center, we need to elevate ourselves. This is something which we all need to work on. This is what is going to be socialized. Second thing is using some of those collaboration software, like we use a software called Mural, which is more like allowing you the visual collaboration, which is really going to help you, and everybody can participate and interact. It's like you can have the stickers, you can put those ideas and all those things coming together, and you can prioritize. A lot of good things are going to happen. So some of those structures and standards are going to be a part of our life, which is going to be very normal. Earlier, the remote meetings used to be more like status updates, what's happening, give me the progress and all those things. But this is going to be more and more meaningful with a structured approach. And third most important thing, which I feel that these meetings need to be a little bit more humorous. You got to add that fun element to this whole thing because, look, end of the day, customers or product managers, whoever, end of the day, they're all humans like any of us, right? So they all love to be talked about their families, their dogs, their weathers, what is happening in their backyard and all those things. At that, a lot of our GIC folks used to hesitate, or maybe very few would talk to the customers about those things when they come for the earlier meetings, right? We'll straight away jump in the topic and talk about what's happening and some of those things or the issues we got to resolve. I think building that human connect, which is going to be new normal, and that's going to be really, really important because we have seen if you build that connect, even if you have 10 large issues at hand, so the way the customer would approach in the next 45 minutes is very different versus you straight away jump into the issue and say, okay, these are the top 5 issues, this is the update. Okay. And the next meeting, when you talk to the customer, you don't start with asking again some of those things which about the product or the issues. You talk about the conversation, what you had, or probably you would have in an in-person meeting, like you put a meal for a dinner, because at the dinner table, you don't talk about the work, right? You talk about a few things which you try to know more about them and their business, their families, and a few other things, right? Or some of the common interest, what we say. So those things, I think, is going to be like, this is what we are trying to help all our folks in the team. That guys spend a couple of minutes, build that informal relationship, whoever you meet in the company, from a customer side, be it whoever. And that's very important because once you build that human connect, rest of the things will fall in place. That's the way we all believe. And it really had worked. I mean, we have seen, like for example, I'll give you a very simple example before I hand it over back to you. So we have a lot of customers like government agencies and the secured customers who can't open up their data centers for any deployment. It has to be in person, very simple. And even in the pandemic also, they can't open. They can't give you a VPN connection. So it's a very simple. So technically, are we saying that we can't do any business with them? No. So the way we worked is that we opened up a lab for them. Instead of they opening up the lab, we opened the lab for them. We said that, okay, we are allowing your engineering and the IT department to come and do the setup in our environment. So you don't have a risk. So like all the integrations, anything you want to build, deploy the software, you do it in our environment. We'll help you to make everything work along with the testing. Once everything is perfect, including a UAT and all those things, you take it back, the same configuration, and do it in your environment. So all these new ideas, I think, would keep coming. And this is how I think it will propel the next level of innovation. And this is where I think the GIC, especially out of India, has a huge, huge opportunity because, I mean, now we are level playing field, everything is remote, right? And this is going to continue. This is not going to go back to the normal where the salesperson has to travel 70% of the time. This is one of the job criteria which we need to have. Like all our JDs used to 50% travel. If you're open to travel 50% of the time. So those things are gone. Okay. So I think, but it's going to be very interesting. But the employees are going to play an important role in this whole thing, and the structure and the way we interact with the customers.
Yeah. I agree, Nilotpal. I think, the need for the empathy and the need for the human connect has never been greater, whether it's the isolation of sitting behind screens all day or, whether it's the human sort of toll that the pandemic has taken. But completely on board with this. And yeah, I think it's time HR leaders sort of revisited JDs for their sales teams in terms of the travel requirement. But lots of fundamental shifts that are coming in, right? Shekhar, I think we're just about doing well on time. But please, your thoughts, and we'll sign off with that in terms of how is this going to change the way your teams and operate, right? Internally as well as with customers.
So, maybe I'll try to be nice here. I'll be succinct and I'll be nice. So I'll reiterate what you started out the meeting with, right? You all talked about Zinnov Engagement Effective Index. I think that's a brilliant thing to do, actually, both from a collaboration and impact score. I thought I think in different organizations do it in different ways. We look at it from a people side and then the business side, but bringing them together, I thought is a nice way. And so that could really drive some practices within our organization. So I want to reiterate that. So that's the brownie point. But keeping that aside, I'll talk about 3 different practices which are very pointed and very relevant. First is our hiring strategy, right? So we are now revamping and redesigning our entire hiring strategy where location is no longer a constraint. We are also changing the way we are defining the job description, JD, from years and tenurity to goals and outcomes. So traditionally, as many in the Indian industry, we always looked at how many years of experience and what is that type of evaluation. Now we are saying this is the job. These are the skills. If you have the skills, irrespective of where you are, what you are, we are wanting. So there's a huge shift, and the availability of talent, the way we're looking at talent is very different. The second, tied into our entire strategy of the talent acquisition, our workforce management, what we call as Workforce 2.0, gives a very structured and differentiated approach for our employees where they have a choice to choose whether to work remotely or to work out of office or to have flexibility. And we have a well-defined format as to how employees can and have a good balance between what they want as connecting with their employees as well as being with their families, right? So the interesting thing is a complete flexible model where employees have a choice. And that can be changed. Okay, periodically they can keep changing it. So that's the second part where we are institutionalizing. And the third is the most important thing: enablement. Right, the training part. What we have realized is when we hire all these people, right, whether they're from colleges or the lateral hires, the way we used to conduct the training was all instructor-led. Now it's all becoming self-paced, remote, web-based trainings. And we are finding that is having its required impact and uptake. So these are 3 of the top of my mind things which I can think which has got to, the pandemic has changed. If not, all these things would not have happened. Yeah. But then I'm going to pass it back.
Great. Thank you so much, Shekhar. Really succinct, appreciate the point by point sort of list. And I think with that, there's plenty of sort of takeaways that have emerged, right, from this panel. I think across the board, all of you have viewed it as an opportunity to create a lot of long-term best practices instead of looking at it as something that teams have lost in terms of interaction with customer. I think a lot of you have expedited charters, whether it was the automation aspect, whether it was the better utilization of tools and platforms and resources that were already at the disposal of teams. But I think one of the things that has emerged across the board is that empathy towards your employees and empathy towards customers is paramount. I think the key learning now is how does this sort of translate into the day-to-day work and product development, that is being carried out by teams itself. So I think agreed across the board that all of you are revisiting a lot of the best practices that you thought were best practices till about a year and a half ago around innovation, around employee engagement, around collaboration. And the pandemic has sort of forced all of us to rethink what we thought was best. But thank you so much. I think I just want to take a minute. It's not easy taking such a big chunk of your time. I'm sure the audience has found this extremely insightful. We'd really like to thank Nilotpal, Shekhar, Randhir, Gaurav to have taken the time out of your schedule and spent it with our panelists. For any questions, any follow-ups that the audience may have, please do reach out to us. If you'd like to speak to a specific panelist, we'd also be happy to facilitate that depending on their availability. But thank you so much. And, I wish all of you a very good rest of the day as well as week. Thank you. Stay safe.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone. And thanks, Namita. Thanks, Prashant. And thank you, Zinov, for inviting me to this lovely panel. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.